Hello students. Today we are going to discuss the second part of the sixth chapter of history, Mahatma Gandhi and National Movement. Our topic of discussion today is the civil disobedience movement. In the previous video, we have discussed about the non-cooperation movement. That was the first topic of this chapter included in the syllabus. Remember, these videos are based on the new revised syllabus. Today, we are going to discuss about the civil disobedience movement, its causes, programs, and the Gandhi-Irwin Pact and the Round Table conferences. The civil disobedience movement was one of the most significant movements launched by Mahatma Gandhi in the course of India's freedom struggle. It started in 1930 and lasted up to 1934. If we are comparing the non-cooperation movement with the civil disobedience movement, we can see some differences. There are differences in its causes, in its methods, and the impact also. The non-cooperation movement sought to bring the working of the government to a standstill by not cooperating with the administration, whereas the civil disobedience movement was an attempt to paralyze the administration by breaking some rules and regulations. Now, let's see what were the factors caused for the launching of civil disobedience movement. It can be said that the causes for the launching of civil disobedience movement. There are two important causes for the launching of civil disobedience movement. The first cause is Simon Commission. Simon Commission was a British commission came to India for investigating the need for further constitutional reforms. It was sent by the British government. The Simon Commission came to India in 1928. It was called Simon Commission because it was headed by Sir John Simon. The Simon Commission was consisting of 7 British Parliament members, and there was no Indian members in the commission. It was disliked by the Indians and Indian National Congress. That is why the Indians decided to boycott the Simon Commission. The Simon Commission reached Bombay on 3rd February 1928. That day was observed as a day of national hartal, and wherever Simon Commission went, it was greeted with a black flag and the slogan, "Simon, go back." The reason for the reaction: there was no Indian member in the commission, so the Simon Commission was boycotted everywhere. The second cause for the launching of civil disobedience movement was the declaration of Purna Swaraj. You have studied that in the month of December every year, the annual sessions of Congress will be held. In the year 1929, the annual session of Congress was held at Lahore and it was presided over by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The annual session of Congress held at Lahore was a historic session. It took some historic decisions or it passed some historic resolution. The Lahore session of Congress passed a resolution declaring Purna Swaraj to be the objective of Indian National Congress. You have studied that when Indian National Congress was established, its objective was Indianization of services, creating harmony between national political workers across the country, etc. In course of time, the constitution of the Congress was amended and its objectives were changing. Later, the Dominion status became an objective of Indian National Congress, but from 1929 onwards, attainment of Purna Swaraj or complete independence became an objective of Indian National Congress. The Lahore session of Congress passed some other resolution. The Congress Working Committee decided the following programs. The first one is preparation of civil disobedience movement. Second one, complete independence or Swaraj was set as the goal of the national movement. That means the national movement was intensified. Third decision, 26th January was observed as Purna Swaraj Day. From 1930 to 1947, 26th January was celebrated as Purna Swaraj Day. The last one is a resignation by members of the legislature. The Congress demanded to its members to resign from the central legislature and the provincial legislatures. So these were the main decisions taken by the Working Committee of Indian National Congress. These two were the main causes for the launching of civil disobedience movement. The next topic is Dandi March or Salt March. It was a march organized by Mahatma Gandhi. The Congress Working Committee met in Sabarmati Ashram, entrusted Mahatma Gandhi to launch the civil disobedience movement. Mahatma Gandhi accepted the responsibility. So on 12th March, Gandhiji and 78 followers began his historic march from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi. Dandi is a village on the Gujarat coast. Along with the selected 78 followers, Gandhiji started from Sabarmati Ashram. They walked around 240 miles and reached the Dandi coast. On 6th April, Gandhiji and his followers reached the sea coast and collected some salt, thereby violated the salt law. The British imposed a salt law in India, thereby the Indians are not allowed to manufacture or collect salt. Gandhiji selected salt for the civil disobedience movement because salt was a necessary commodity for all the Indians. It is an important element in the Indian diet and it is used by all types of people. The rich and poor were using salt. Hindus and Muslims were using salt. The men and women, all type of people were using salt, and as it is a necessary community, as it is a necessary commodity, Gandhiji decided to violate the salt law. The breaking of salt law by Mahatma Gandhi marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement. He was followed by the Congress members at different parts of India. The salt law was violated. In the coastal regions, both the Konkan coast and Coromandel coast at different places, salt law was violated. Then throughout the country, the civil disobedience movement was spread. Next is the programs of the civil disobedience movement. The first program of the civil disobedience movement was defiance of salt law. Defiance of salt law means the violation of salt law. The people violated salt law by manufacturing salt and collecting salt from the sea coast. The second program of the movement was boycott of liquor. Third one, boycott of foreign cloth and British goods of all kinds. These two, the second and third programs, were similar to the programs introduced during the time of the non-cooperation movement. The fourth program was non-payment of taxes and revenues. Like the defiance of salt law, many civil laws were violated. People were not ready to pay taxes, especially in the interior part of India. The violation of salt law was not possible. That is why the people were not ready to pay taxes like forest tax and Chowkidari tax. These programs, the programs of the civil disobedience movement, spread all over India. In the northwest frontier province, under the leadership of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, better known as Frontier Gandhi, the civil disobedience movement was popularized. In Manipur and Nagaland, this movement became very popular. The government was not ready to tolerate with the civil disobedience movement. Many people were arrested. Thousands of people were imprisoned. Congress was declared an illegal organization. Mahatma Gandhi was also arrested and imprisoned. Even though too much arrest and repressive measures were going on, the civil disobedience movement continued. So the British government tried to make some discussion with Mahatma Gandhi and other leaders for the suspension of the civil disobedience movement. So as a result, a pact was signed between Mahatma Gandhi and viceroy Lord Irwin. So the next topic of our study is Gandhi-Irwin Pact. It was signed in the year 1931. As per the provisions of Gandhi-Irwin Pact, the civil disobedience movement was suspended. Following are the important provisions of Gandhi-Irwin Pact. You have to remember some of the terms of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. The first term of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. The government agreed to withdraw all ordinances and end of prosecution. The second one, the government agreed to release all political prisoners except those who were guilty of violence. Third one, they agreed to restore the confiscated properties of the satyagrahis. Those arrested satyagrahis, properties and wealth were taken by the British police, and they promised that it will be given back. Then fourth one, the government permitted peaceful picketing of liquor and foreign clothes shops. In return, the Congress agreed to suspend the civil disobedience movement, and they agreed to participate in the second session of the Round Table Conference. These are the 6 important terms of Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Once again, the first one, withdrawal of ordinances and end of prosecution. Second, a release of all political prisoners except those guilty of violence. Third, restore the confiscated properties of the satyagrahis. Fourth, permit peaceful picketing of liquor and foreign clothes shops. Fifth, to suspend the civil disobedience movement. And last, to participate in the second session of the Round Table Conference. Now the last topic is a Round Table Conference. In the syllabus, only the second Round Table Conference is given. So just remember 1 or 2 points related to the second Round Table Conference. The Round Table Conferences were a series of peace conferences organized by the British government and the Indian political leaders to discuss the constitutional reforms in India. There were 3 Round Table Conferences. The first Round Table Conference was held in 1931. The Congress boycotted the first Round Table Conference due to their reaction towards the Simon Commission. In the absence of the Congress representatives, the British officials felt that the conference is futile, so they suspended the first Round Table Conference. The second Round Table Conference was organized in the same year, 1931. It was attended by Mahatma Gandhi as a sole representative of Congress. Mahatma Gandhi went to London and there he attended the conference, but it was soon deadlocked on the minorities issue. There was no progress in the discussion, so Mahatma Gandhi returned to India before completing the second Round Table Conference. The third Round Table Conference was organized in 1932, that also not attended by the representatives of the Congress. So this is the end of the civil disobedience movement and end of the 6th chapter. Remember, 2 major topics are there in this chapter. From each topic you can expect short questions or structured questions for the board examination. Thank you.